Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Today we are going to kill two birds with one stone. First, I'm going to show you how I work with thermal dip powders, which can be somewhat challenging because their texture is a bit different. And then I'm going to show you how I like to file and shape my nails. In this video, my nails are a somewhat longer coffin shape. These are actually considered medium coffin, but on me they're a bit long, so I'm going to show you how I do all of that. This is the powder we're using today. It is called Restoring the Heart. It is by Sand Designer Dips. I will link all of the information down in the description box for this color, as well as all of the filing and shaping tools that I'm about to show you. So these are all the files that I have in my possession. They're different shapes, but they are all 180 grit files. These are the only kinds of files I really use, but the shapes vary. Right now, this is the one that I am loving. I got it from Color My World Dips in one of their packages. Now this file is a much thinner file. I use this for Cuticle Work. It is a 180 to 40 grit nail file, but again, that is mostly just something I use for Cuticle Work. I also do have my glass nail file on hand, another tool I use for some cuticle cleanup and shaping. I love that it has an extremely pointy tip, and I'll show you how I use that later. And I also have my cuticle pusher. This is a glass cuticle pusher that I got on Amazon. And again, I will link as much of these in the description box as I can. If I can't find the exact files, I will link something similar. This is my baby. This is my e-file, my Model XS 2.0 from iGel Beauty. When I am using it for shaping my nails, I like to use this very small diamond bit. It is a medium grit diamond bit, and I will explain how I use that and why I love that bit so much for this kind of thing later. Right now, we're going to get into the dipping process. I'm using my 𝕔𝕙𝕒𝕟𝕟𝕟𝕟 low odor base, and I'm going to start by applying a thin layer of my base liquid down on my nail. I do have peel base on, as I usually do, because I do change out my mayonnaise quite often, and I try to avoid soaking in acetone as much as I possibly can. So I'm carefully applying a thin layer of my base liquid, and then I'm going to lay my nail down flat into the powder. As you'll see, the powder is quite thick and chalky looking. That has to do with the kind of pigment that is used for the thermal change. Now, there are a couple of reasons why I've chosen to do the lay flat method for this application. And one of those reasons is that I am using my low odor dip base, and it is a much slower drying base. So when you dip your finger into a powder like this that is thick and kind of chalky, you can get several things. You can get a thicker application than you really want, but also you can get wrinkling and buckling of the dip powder on your nail, which will make it a mess to file and shape. So I have found that with powders like this, the lay flat method works the best. Now, as you can see, as I'm going through, I am laying my finger in and I'm cleaning up my cuticles with my tool, but I'm not brushing off the excess yet. I'm just letting the powder sit on my nail. Every now and then I go back in with an orange stick and I stir it up for several reasons. You want to make sure that it does not get caked down to the bottom, because it'll be harder to apply that way. But also, you want to make sure that that pigment is constantly mixed, because, the other thing about this powder that I neglected to mention earlier is that it is also a glow powder. So you've got several things working against you when applying this powder. Because of the kinds of pigments that are in it, it can make application quite challenging. It changes the texture of the acrylic. So as you can see, it is very thick, very chalky. I tap off like I normally do, and as you can see, it is still pretty caked on there. So after I have allowed it to dry a significant amount of time, I then go in with a fluffy brush and gently brush away the excess powder, because I don't want to wipe away anything that I've applied, but I don't want to go back in with my liquids with all that powder still on my nail. So I'm going to apply the second coat exactly the same way. I'm going to apply my dip base, and I'm going to lay my finger flat, and I'm not going to brush off excess until I have dipped all 5 nails and each nail has sufficiently dried. And that's basically it. The only thing I can tell you about this kind of powder is that in the end, it does have a very nice finish. It does not look thick or bulky, but part of that has to do with my filing and shaping process. And we're going to get into that too in a little bit. So I'm going to take a quick little breather here while you watch me dip out this second layer of the color. Then I'm going to encapsulate everything in clear like I always do, activate. And then when I return, we're going to get into my filing and shaping routine, and I will share some of my tips and tricks on how I get a nice, clean looking shape. Okay, I thought I'd jump back in right here when I'm about to activate. I like to apply a very generous amount of activator when I am doing dip powder, especially when I am doing thicker powders like these thermals. Look at that change. It's already the activator. So this is a cold activation thermal, which means that it changes when it's cold. So its resting color is like that lighter green color you see on my, that's where it's warmer because it's next to my nail bed. And then the tips change to like that deep teal color. That is the cold color. Anyway, we'll get into that later. I'm going to show you how the change happens and what it looks like later on in this video. I am going to turn my attention to my filing and shaping routine now. I am using my e-file right now, and I have it up to, I think it was 9,000 RPMs. And I am using this medium grit, tiny diamond bit. And I like using this bit because it gives me a lot of control. I can really see what I'm doing, and it's really gentle. It doesn't cut your skin if you accidentally like bump up against your cuticle. Unless you're going over and over the same spot repeatedly, it's not going to damage your skin. And that's one of the reasons. See, you can see right here, I'm literally going around my skin and it's not hurting me in the least. And that's one of the reasons I love this bit. So I'm just literally taking away some of the bulk from the cuticle line, especially with dips like this. You know, it can get kind of thick in that area, and I like to just use this bit to kind of take down some of that bulk and start creating the beginning of an apex. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm showing you here. I'm using my pinky to anchor my hand and to have more control with the bit. And I also use that finger to pull my sidewalls back on that side, so that I can kind of get in closer with the bit. And this works really, really well for me. And as you can see, I'm trying to pretty much go in one direction. I'm not rubbing the bit back and forth across the nail much. Sometimes I do it, but I don't do it for a very long time because you can create heat when you do that, and you don't want any hot spots when you are using an e-file. Well, when you're using any file, you don't want to file the same spot for a long period of time because, again, even with a hand file, it can get hot. You can create heat. So just be very conscious of that and be very careful. So I'm going to finish this up and then we'll get into some hand filing. So a little disclaimer I wanted to mention before I get into my hand filing routine. I am not a professional nail technician. I am a DIYer. I am completely self-taught in everything that I am doing, and I am showing you I have learned through trial and error and watching tutorials myself. So, you know, take all of this with a grain of salt and do what you think is safe for you. I am not an expert. Okay, now that that's all said, let's get into some hand filing. I am using this 100-180 grit nail file that I got from Color My World Dips. I did go on their website to see if they had this exact same file listed, and they do not. They have a crescent hand file, which will work just as well. I did find some hand files shaped like this on Amazon that I will link down in the description box. So I just want to talk about what I start off doing. I start off with my 100 grit side, and I'm using that simply to clean up my sidewalls, perfect the shape. I'm going to bring in the sides and the free edge straightened out so that I kind of get my shape back to the way it was before I dipped. And then I go in with my 180 grit side, and that is what I used to do all of my shaping and contouring. I start by smoothing out the surface of the nail, getting rid of any ridges that might be there, and then I go about contouring, and I use my nail file at different angles depending on what part of the nail I am filing. And to create a really good apex, I like to go over the top of my nail and kind of rock it back and forth. And one thing that I will mention is that I spend a lot of time looking at my nail from different angles. I look what you call down the barrel. I'm going to show you that in a minute. So I turn it upside down, I turn it right side up, I look down the barrel, I look at it from the side, and I do this so that I can see how it's shaping up. And if I can see any lumps or bumps or unevenness, and I just take my file, I focus on those areas. So, like I said, I like to create sort of a nice apex. So I will, a lot of times, lay the file sort of horizontally, is that right? Flat against the nail. And then I'll start from one sidewall, and then I'll file across the top of the nail all the way to the other sidewall, if that makes any sense. So here I am, I was looking down the barrel at the shape of that nail, and I found an area that looked a little bit uneven. So I, again, took my file and just focused on that spot. And I go over the top and I round it off, because what you want is a nice C curve. You want an apex and a nice C curve. And I'm going to show you when I get it where I want it, I'm going to show you a side view of all my nails and how they look with the apex shaped out. I just highly suggest that you slow down, take your time, don't rush it. See, I just do it from all different angles. That's the best advice I can give you, is to really just look at your nail. Just look at it. Does it look bumpy? Do you see an area that doesn't look even? And work at it with the file. The file is your tool. It'll do what you want it to do. You just have to put it in the right spot. See here, I'm going right over the top of the nail. I'm going around the cuticle to kind of shape it. I feel like I'm just rambling on, but I think you can kind of see what I'm doing. But the idea is to not be afraid to use your file. Once it is activated, dip powder is incredibly durable. And unless you are really being extremely aggressive, it's just going to shape up the way you want it to. And that's one of the reasons why I encapsulate in clear for everything. Glitters, solids, shimmers, foils, everything. Because I want to be able to use my nail file to get the shape that I want without destroying the color. So I'm just going to continue doing the same process on every single nail. And I'm going to stop yammering on about it now and let you just watch me do it, because I think sometimes the actions are overshadowed by all the talking. Because I might be saying something different than what I'm actually doing in that moment. So I'm going to let you just watch what I do and how I shape them up. I'm going to try my best to stay in shot, in frame, because I I wear glasses. I don't have the best eyesight, and I literally file up in front of my face 90% of the time. So staying in frame and showing you how to do this is really challenging. So be patient with me. If I go out of frame a little bit, I apologize. But I'm going to let you watch, and then I'm going to come back and show you what my apex situation and my C-curve situation looks like. Okay, so here, as I am in the final stages of filing this one nail, I am showing you how I look down the barrel. You'll see what my C-curve is looking like and how I am going over the top of the nail and filing and shaping that. And then I'm going to show you, here is the side view. You can see that my nails are fairly straight. They have a fairly nice apex. And yeah, that's what they're looking like. I'm going to finish up my pinky nail. I think that's the last one I have to do with the hand file. And then when I come back, we're going to talk about cuticle work and how we shape up that cuticle area to make a nice, clean cuticle line. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to clean off all the dust with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. And I'm going to tell you right now, one of the best things that you can do throughout the filing and shaping process is to clean off all the dust so that you can see what you are working with. Because if you don't do that periodically, then you can't really see how your cuticle line is shaping up, and that's kind of important. So I'm going to go in with this nail file. It's a very thin, very fine grit nail file. I am using, starting off with, I think it's the 180 grit side, and I'm just going to carefully run it around the edge of my cuticle area. It fits nicely between the dip powder and my actual skin because it is so thin. And as you can see, I'm being very careful. I'm not sawing back and forth with it. I'm just kind of rocking it around the area and being very gentle because it is very easy to cut yourself doing this. So I do this very gently, and again, I take my time. I am going to be honest with you. My filing and shaping routine is probably what takes me the longest in the entire process of dipping. Now, sometimes nail art takes me a little longer, but in general, my filing and shaping routine takes me a while because I am a perfectionist. I'm super picky, and I want it to look as good as possible. So now what I am doing is I am going in with my glass cuticle pusher, and I am spraying a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, and I am just gently rubbing around my cuticle area, because sometimes there might be a little bit of staining, there might be a little bit of residual glue from the base. I just want to make sure that that area is as clean as possible. And this has been a very successful way for me to go about doing that. Now, sometimes that cuticle pusher is not quite pointy enough to get really in there between the dip powder and my skin. And so sometimes I will use the pointy end of my glass nail file. This is one of my favorite glass nail files. It's by Bohemian Glass, and I will link their shop down below as well. But I absolutely love their nail files. They're all hand painted. They're really pretty. But I also have some from Bonafide Beauty that are just as wonderful. The glass nail files and glass cuticle pushers have literally been a game changer for me. I absolutely love using them. So I'm going to finish doing this, and then I'm going to get into some buffing. I do actually also buff my nails smooth, so we'll talk about that in a minute too. So these are my favorite buffers right now. They are from Nail Couture, and they are just wonderful. I love the crescent shape of them. I love the fact that it is a full-size buffer. Yes, I do use some of the mini buffers still. I like them sometimes, but I love having a full-size buffer in my hand. I feel like I have a lot more control that way, and I'm not replacing them as often. Now that I've finished buffing everything up, I am going in. This is pH prep. This is a prep liquid that you apply to your nails before you start dipping. When I am done with my buffer, I like to clean off my nails with some isopropyl alcohol, and sometimes that can discolor the nail. It turns it kind of like a cloudy white color, and it's really hard to see. And I like to use the pH prep to just kind of clean up and like kind of wet the nail so that you can see what it looks like without having to activate it yet. Because if there's something that I want to fix, I can go back in and not worry about, having activated. So that's the final step. I just use a little bit of pH prep to clean everything up, make sure everything looks beautiful, and then I'll go in with my activator, and then I will top coat. And that's what we're doing now. And I'm not going to talk about it because it's just a beautiful glossy top coat, and I'm going to let you just watch. here they are. This is such a pretty green. This is the warm color, okay? So it is really, really warm in my nail room. So my nails are just like straight up green. But I am gonna pull out a bowl of cold water and show you the change in just a minute. But first I'm going to apply some cuticle oil to replenish some of that moisture that we took away from all that alcohol and filing and dipping and etc. And then I'm going to show you. You just wait. Look at this. This is just a cold bowl. What? A bowl of cold tap water. Seriously, look at how sensitive this dip is. Now, I believe you would call this a triple thermal because as you can see, it's not that bright green color anymore, but the tip of my nail is definitely way darker than the base of my nail, if that makes sense. But wait, if you think that's cool, get a load of this. Oh, yes, it glows, and boy, does it glow. And do you see that? Wait, I've got to show you something. I'm going to stick my hand back in that bowl of cold water, and look at this. The glow changes color. What? That's crazy. I've never seen that before. This is the coolest powder. I love me a good thermal, but I also love a good glow. I am obsessed. Okay, so talk to me. How many of you have tried thermal powders? Do you like them? Do you think that they're as worth it as I do? I mean, I don't know. Look at this. I'm fascinated. Like, I can't stop playing with them. Look how sensitive this thermal is. It's crazy. That's literally just the warmth from my fingers changing the color. It's crazy. I just can't get enough of these. Also, what do you think of glow powders? I love a good glow powder. Absolutely find them so much fun. Some people like glow powders and some people don't. I absolutely love them. I also hope that you found this video helpful. I know that some people are really intimidated by filing and shaping, and I hope that seeing what I do and what works for me is helpful for you. If you have any questions or need any further explanation, please feel free to ask me down in the comments below. I am always happy to help. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye now.